Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome back to Basketball Conference, the ACC Football Podcast. My name is Joey Weaver. He is Mike McDaniel. Mike, first question. I was actually on the beach in Cancun this weekend. I didn't get to see any of these games. What did I miss?
Yeah, you missed some stuff.
Everything was fine, right? Nothing, no big deal?
Like we started last weekend's recap with Lauren Brownlow, we said, yeah, everything's fine, right? Not really. Everything's fine in my wallet though, Joey, because my actual bets, we're not talking about my podcast picks. We're talking like legitimate bets that I've made. I'm 14-2 against the spread the last 2 weeks. That is that's not normal. So jump on the train next week. We'll all lose money together because I am way overdue to lose money.
Mike is rolling
right now. Unbelievable heater.
All right. Well, let's talk about these games here from yesterday, Mike. I'd probably over exaggerated here just a little bit. I had kind of got myself caught up on all the games and what happened with them, so I do look forward to talking to them here. I didn't really get to watch any of them live, but I have since educated myself on what happened in the ACC in Week 5. And Mike, there's no better place to start than our beloved number 3 Clemson Tigers 27, Syracuse 23. In a game that was going to be a blowout, was going to be a runaway get-back game for Clemson, and the whole thing just went sideways for him in the second quarter when Trevor Lawrence goes out.
Ironically, the one game that I bet on yesterday that I lost, and I was so emphatic that Clemson was going to blow the doors off Syracuse in this football game. I could not have been more wrong. So let's start with this.
And I'll be damned if you didn't talk me off the ledge of Syracuse plus 24 too.
Yeah, I'll take the L for both of us on that one, and we'll move on, right? So let's start with this. Syracuse's defensive line for a good portion of this game, I don't want to say dominated the point of attack, but they were certainly more aggressive. Clemson's offensive line was having some serious issues blocking a Syracuse front, which, color me surprised. I didn't think that would be a problem, but it was. Keeping Trevor Lawrence comfortable in the pocket was a pretty substantial issue for Clemson in the first half. They didn't get to Trevor Lawrence all that much, but he was not comfortable back there. He was running around quite a bit. A lot of plays were off schedule. And as a result, Clemson was having a lot of trouble putting the ball in the end zone and really sustaining drives in the first half of this football game. So, first of all, credit to Syracuse defense. I thought they were about as good as you can hope for going on the road in Death Valley against a top 5 team. I mean, I thought the defense, for the most part, did a pretty solid job for Syracuse, and I probably have to give them a little bit more credit than I have been through the first month of the year. Talking about how bad of a unit they are, you get more data points like this one, and, you have to wonder. And I think Syracuse has definitely made some strides. So I was wrong there. So let's start with that. Obviously, a Trevor Lawrence injury wasn't great, stumbling along the sideline, scrambling. He stepped out, but it's one of those things the DB doesn't know, and the refs don't know. They're not blowing the whistle, and Trevor Lawrence takes a pretty good shot there. And Clemson's worst nightmare is realized. Kelly Bryant transfers out of the program just a few short days ago. Trevor Lawrence gets hurt in the second quarter of game 1 as the starter. And you're now looking at Chase Bryce, who redshirt freshman, top 50 in the ESPN 300. He's got some pedigree, but hasn't taken a whole lot of snaps as a quarterback for Clemson. He's gotten some garbage time play here over the first few games of the year, but he has not played much. All of a sudden, he's your QB1, and you're trailing 14-6 on the road. 14-6 at home against a unranked Syracuse team. So, flashback to 2017, perhaps, at the Carrier Dome when you lost Kelly Bryant. Not a great situation to be in. And Clemson is on very thin ice in that quarterback room. With that being said, Clemson's defense really locked things down in the second half. Thought they did a pretty nice job. I thought Clemson was toast, honestly. Chase Bryce throws a pick in the third quarter, and you're staring at this game wondering, wow, Clemson might lose to Syracuse for the second year in a row, but they quickly got together. I thought Chase Bryce settled in quite nicely. Travis Etienne, massive game, over 200 yards rushing, 3 touchdowns. obviously was a catalyst for this offense and the reason why they won this football game. This was a statement game for ETN. I mean, he was awesome throughout that first half, second half. He was the only guy consistently getting Clemson's offense moving. But overall, the defense made plays when it had to. Obviously, down the stretch, Chase Bryce made a couple of big-time throws, and Travis Etienne was a dude, Joey. He was really, really, really good in this football game. That ended up being the difference. Just enough plays being made by the superior football team to win. First time Clemson's really faced this type of adversity. Had that tough game against Texas A&M a couple weeks back, but they were down and out. And with a backup quarterback who was really their third string quarterback in the game, first meaningful game action, you're playing a Syracuse team that's playing angry at home. It's a nooner. Just a lot of stuff was working against Clemson in this football game, and they persevered and found a way to get the W. They have a lot of work to do, no doubt about that, but you figure out how to get this win and you move on. And if you're Clemson, that's all you can ask for given the circumstances.
This was a straight up survival by Clemson. This was not a comfortable win by any stretch. Yeah, you mentioned Chase Bryce. He hadn't taken a meaningful snap in a football game since his high school state title game in 2016, I believe. And he comes off the bench and makes some big time throws. They convert a fourth down with about 2.5 minutes left on a really tight window throw to T. Higgins, gets him 20 yards. Clemson survives here, and it really was an amazing effort from Etienne to get it going where he did. Chase Bryce again comes in and has a strong performance. But Mike, it's bizarre that a week ago I'm sitting here watching Georgia Tech play against both Kelly Bryant and Trevor Lawrence, and Bryce came into the game actually at one point and promptly threw an interception, I believe. But just a week later, now you're playoff leading, the team, the quarterback that took your team to a playoff is gone. Your freshman phenom who's going to be replacing him is concussed, and how quickly that changed, right? It just, that situation to change as quickly as it did is crazy. And I'm very curious to see what Clemson's going to do here. Again, Trevor Lawrence dealing with some concussion stuff. You never know how quickly that'll resolve itself or won't. It's just kind of up to the individual. You hope this doesn't become a more common issue for him. There's some folks that tend to get a lot of them, and hopefully he's not one of them. He's an amazing talent to watch. But Clemson, they've got a game next week on the road at Wake Forest, and then they get a week off. So
careful.
Yeah, I mean, Wake will beat you too. I mean, if Clemson's not ready for that, Wake will beat them. So I'm curious to see where we're going to go with this. I mean, is Trevor Lawrence going to be able to play next week? Maybe, maybe not. I don't know. And if not, then what? There's some chatter around maybe Kelly Bryant comes back. And I mean, I guess he probably hasn't left Clemson, South Carolina yet. But who knows? This is going to be something really we got to watch, Mike, because this is the kind of thing that will change the course of the season for the ACC. If Clemson is not on pace to make the playoff like they have been, we're probably talking about a total mess of a year for a conference where there's some teams that have looked worse than we were expecting them to.
Yeah, we're not at sound the alarms mode yet. We're not quite there, but if Clemson is favored in the majority of their remaining games, which we expect them to be, if not in all these games, and they drop one and they go to an ACC championship game against a maybe 2-loss Coastal team, which definitely not out of the question, Joey.
Mm-hmm.
And you win an ACC championship game against some lower leverage type competition compared to the other conferences, we might be talking about the ACC being shut out of a playoff, potentially. So keep an eye on that. Obviously, early in the year, a ton can happen, but definitely something to keep an eye on because, look, Clemson, like you said, and like we talked about, this is the team that everybody coordinated at the beginning of the year. And, hey, so far, undefeated. They've gotten the job done. You do what you're supposed to do. You pile up those W's, but they're leaving a lot to be desired on both sides of the ball. They have all the talent in the world, but there are some plays here and there throughout the game where you're wondering, man, I don't know if this will fly against better teams. So just something to keep an eye on here as we move towards the halfway point in the year already.
Absolutely. And just to reiterate what you said too, this is a really impressive showing from Syracuse. They had a really good game here in this spot on the road against a playoff contending team. I've been really impressed with what I've seen from them this year. 5 games in, they're 4-1, and they look like a very good football team that should continue to get better. So keep an eye on that. Let's move on, Mike. Florida State 28, Louisville 24. And, man, let's just start here. This offseason, when we were previewing Louisville, we asked Ethan Moore, where does this fan base stand with Bobby Petrino? And the conclusion was basically we're not, super high on him, but he's also not on the hot seat. They're not ready. They're not pulling out the torches and pitchforks. I'm starting to wonder if maybe they are going to start pulling out the pitchforks after this one, because this was a totally just coaching-induced loss, Mike.
Yeah. I mean, we'll get into the clock management issues that Louisville had towards the end of regulation. Obviously, Louisville just needs to run the clock out. They choose not to do that. Juwan Pass throws a terrible interception. Florida State goes down, scores, wins the game. Yeah, by the way, we have a few awards to hand out at the end of the game, and just remember that little snippet that I was referring to. Atrocious clock management by Bobby Petrino. Of course, he gets asked about after the game, and he says, yeah, probably should have ran it there. It's like,
you think?
Yeah, you think? How much you getting paid again? Yeah, that was ugly. A couple takeaways on the Florida State side. First of all, gritty win by Florida State. They needed one of these. I know Louisville's not a great football team, but Florida State gets the job done. Obviously, they still leave some to be desired on offense, particularly in the running game, Joey. 31 carries, 76 yards, only 2.5 yards per carry. Those obviously aren't the sack-adjusted numbers, but it still wasn't good. Florida State, with all the talent in the world in the backfield, and it's still a poor offensive line. I mean, they can't run the football, and that's very problematic. Joey, you referred to this last week in the recap when you mentioned, hey, it's almost like you put the ball in the hands of your best offensive player and good things happen. DeAndre Francois, 16 of 27, 294, 4 touchdowns, 74.7 QBR.
Yeah, still real good.
Still a good player. They should keep doing that. That should bode well for them in regards to trying to make a bowl game, which it's amazing how far they've fallen when we're just talking about them in that context. But Naquan Murray, huge game, obviously, made the huge play at the end to what ended up being the game-winning score. 6 catches, 114, 2 touchdowns. Cameron Terry, 3 catches, 71 yards and a touchdown in this one, so that was solid. Juwan Pass threw that awful interception, but goes for 306, completed a little bit better than half his passes, 2 touchdowns, 2 interceptions. 100% comes down to coaching in this game between 2 pretty poor football teams. But, at the end of the day, Florida State could have won this game by a lot more than they did. They kept shooting themselves in the foot this entire game. Just offensively, complete and total inability to run the ball against a very questionable Louisville defense is not the greatest look in the world. I don't know. I don't know what to make of either of these two teams. This kind of went down as expected. Like, 2 bad teams. One's a little bit less bad, and that team found a way to win. But hey, if you're Willie Taggart, though, honestly, you can certainly build on this. Come from behind, never give up, all that other crap. But
you're so inspirational, Mike.
Yeah, it's got to come from somewhere. Good win for Florida State. They're in the win column. They now have more wins than losses, so that's good because they have more 4 and 5 stars than most teams do. So it's good that they're finally have a winning record.
Also noteworthy to me in this game is Louisville is now back together with Juwan Pass as their starting quarterback.
Just shoot me.
You think they play rock, paper, scissors in the locker room before the game to see who's starting, or like? I don't.
Yeah.
This is bizarre. Now, Pass was not terrible. I mean, 24 of 45 for 306, 2 touchdowns, 2 picks, including the really critical late pick. I mean, it could be better, but it could be worse, I suppose. I'm still just hung up on this fact that it's first down with less than 2 minutes left. Florida State has a couple timeouts. First down, Mike. They're throwing the ball. What are you doing, Louisville? I don't know what you're doing. Why are you throwing the ball? The announcers literally said that much. They just yelled out, "Why are we throwing the ball right now?" That was absurd to me. Mind-boggling.
It was bad. I mean, we had a couple of coaches this weekend, both inside the ACC and outside the ACC, being paid a lot of money that made very questionable play calling decisions down the stretch.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure, Joey, you caught part of that Penn State-Ohio State game. Trace McSorley was the best player on the field for Penn State, and they ran the ball on 4th and 5 with the game on the line. And obviously, Ohio State made the stop. It's just like, man, these coaches are paid all sorts of money to make these types of decisions. And they're decisions that an ordinary fan looks at, and they're like, why in the world would you run that play? And we're not being paid like that, right? So that's when you know it's bad. And we saw it in that game, obviously, which was a much more widely watched football game over the weekend. And then we saw it in this Florida State Louisville game, which is just so awful.
Yeah, if I'm a Louisville fan right now, which by the way I kind of am, I think I'm starting to think about what the future after Bobby Petrino looks like. I'm not getting the warm fuzzies from this program. I maintain that I'm pretty confident at this point that Lamar Jackson was just covering up a lot of the issues with this team. He has made 2 absolute half-assed defensive coordinator hires in a row, and it's just this is not a good program right now. And
right.
I don't have a whole lot of reason to think it's going to be getting a lot better.
Right. In all fairness, I think we thought that, and we had mentioned this, that we thought that Lamar Jackson was covering up a lot of inefficiencies with this football team. Like, we thought that the 2 poor hires at defensive coordinator really coming back to haunt Louisville here. And offense isn't much better. Offensive line, by the way, still atrocious. Like, that has not gotten better in 3 years. That's the more concerning thing for me, is that the defense hasn't shown any signs of improvement. The offensive line is still not any good. And now you don't have like an all-world athlete at quarterback. And Jawan Pass is, I think, a good athlete, but he is not Lamar Jackson. And that's not an indictment of him. It's just the way it is. We're not going to see many athletes in the college football landscape like Lamar Jackson. He's like a once in quarter century player at the position. So it's amazing. It's like, oh, we don't have that guy anymore. And now look at what's happening. So I think it's a little bit worse than you and I thought, but at the same time, it's not a huge surprise that it's manifesting itself as, Lamar Jackson was really just covering up a lot of ills that Louisville had on both sides of the football.
Yeah. Not to mention that there's no Tom Jurich there as AD anymore with all the basketball stuff that's gone on. So now you've got Vince Tyra making decisions on the future of Petrino, and he might feel a little bit differently about him than Tom did. But
not his guy. So
not his guy, Mike. Not at all. Florida State 28, Louisville 24. Let's move on. NC State 35, Virginia 21. And so if you're a Virginia fan, I think you look at this game in one of 2 ways: is, oh, damn, we lost, or there is some good here. There's some signs. And with all of what we've seen from Virginia this year, there's progress being made. There's progress being made. This is a better team than it was last year, and there is reason for optimism.
Yep, completely agree. This is one of those games where you look at Virginia and you're like, hey, they played really hard. And they didn't quit, and they didn't roll over against who I think is a pretty good football team. I mean, I think NC State's solid. Ryan Finley is, if you don't think he's a top 5 quarterback in the country, he's certainly top 7. He's very good. He had a couple boneheaded throws in this game, and then a couple throws that, hey, there's the NFL prospect. So NC State gets the job done here. Finley has 3 touchdown passes. They ran the ball much better than Virginia did. Ricky Person, 14 carries, 108 in this game. Reggie Gillespie, 47 yards rushing and a touchdown. As a team, they averaged about 4.5 yards a carry on 39 carries, so that'll work. Virginia couldn't run the ball, and as we've seen in the past with Virginia here, when they've been faced in times of adversity here, it's been because they haven't run the ball all that well. They tried to stick with Jordan Ellis. He had 13 carries for 30 yards and a touchdown. Not great. Olamide Zaccheaus, 2 carries for 39 yards. He was your leading rusher as a wide receiver. Bryce Perkins, hell of an effort. He had 24 yards rushing on 14 carries, but threw for 258, 2 touchdowns, did have a couple picks that ended up being relatively costly. Virginia's defense, I thought, overall held up pretty well, despite the rushing yards that I just mentioned. NC State's just, I think they're the better football team. I think that showed throughout this game. But I think if you're a Virginia fan, you should come away from this game encouraged, because this is one of those games maybe a few years ago, if you're a Virginia fan, you look at with NC State as a top 25 or fringe top 25 team where you're like, man, I don't think we have a prayer in this football game. And that's not really how this game went. I mean, Virginia led this game at one point. They were battling. It was very back and forth in the first half. NC State obviously capitalized on a couple of mistakes that Virginia made offensively, but you get beat by a better team, you live with it. I think you're just happy that you're not getting blown out of these games anymore. You're winning the games you're supposed to win. You're keeping the 50-50 games close so that you have a shot. And then once you start facing really good teams, hopefully you don't get blown out like you once did. But if you lose those games, it's just like, hey, okay, maybe we're just a 6-6 program, which for Virginia, hey, it's an improvement over the last, 10 years. We haven't had a lot of data points to look at as far as Virginia going to bowl games. So I think it's certainly heading in the right direction. And maybe it's not a sound the alarm situation like you and I thought it was with Bronco Mendenhall and what does this program look like in a few years. I think he's done a really nice job this year so far. And if Virginia can keep things moving in a positive direction, they can certainly make a bowl game. But on the other side for NC State, this is a pretty good football team in the Atlantic Division. They'll certainly be fighting for that crown, considering how Clemson has looked. NC State certainly doesn't have the talent that Clemson has, but I think NC State can hang on the same field, and that'll be a very interesting game when those two teams tangle here coming up. So NC State, BC, Clemson, all battling out in the Atlantic. I think NC State's definitely manifest themselves as a pretty good football team.
First of all, I think when I was introing the game, I probably wasn't giving enough credit to NC State. And I think that what I'm thinking here is that this was a bit of a measuring stick game for Virginia, given that we know something about NC State and they're more established and trustworthy and all these things we've talked about. One of the things I'm noticing about Virginia too, Mike, is if you look at these box scores, there was like a suspiciously low number of people touching the ball on Virginia's offense. You realize that they've played 5 games now. There's only 2 receivers that they have that have at least 10 receptions, and they have a combined 55 between them. That's Olamide Zaccheaus and Hashish Dubois. They have 2 players named Jordan Ellis and Bryce Perkins who have at least 10 carries. They have 160 between them. And you have only 1 player who has more than 5 pass attempts, and that's Bryce Perkins with 137. Like, Virginia, it seems like they have found a couple of good players that they're just going to ride and use. And I wonder if that's a little bit of something that some of these other teams can key in on, is all they got to worry about is stopping Jordan Ellis and Olamide Zaccheaus, and I'm good. I don't know. There's something to monitor, something to pay attention to that I feel like I keep seeing very, very few names being given carries and being, thrown the ball, that kind of thing. So, just something to kind of keep an eye on as a limitation of Virginia potentially. But yeah, solid game from Ryan Finley. He continues to be, like you said, one of the top, handful of quarterbacks in the country. I think he'll be an early pick in the NFL draft coming up. And it showed here as NC State won this game pretty comfortably. They had this thing in hand for most of the second half.
Yeah, on the flip side of your comment about, something that they can key in on as far as, Virginia really only getting it to like 3 playmakers on their entire team. Like, that's fine. On the flip side of that, maybe we can look at it through the prism of, hey, maybe some of the better teams in Virginia could work to like get the ball in the hands of their best playmakers and just like continue doing that. Like, it's usually a good thing when good players get the ball. Sure. Virginia just doesn't have a lot of them, to your point. So you can look at Virginia and say, okay, we got like 3 good players, and those are the guys we're going to give the ball to, and teams can key on that. But hey, if you're like Clemson or, I don't know, Florida State, for example, where you got playmakers all over the field, Miami, just keep giving the ball to good players.
Mm-hmm.
Things usually work out for you when you do that.
Absolutely. And you saw that, by the way, at the end of that Florida State Louisville game. They got the ball to Naquan Murray in space, and next thing you know, 60 yards later, he's in the end zone.
Seems like a good plan.
Yeah, that wasn't like a long bomb. That was like a 12, 15-yard route that then he broke a couple tackles and just took off, right? So that kind of thing happens when you get the ball to your good players. So do that for sure.
Yep.
NC State 35, Virginia 21. Let's move on, Mike. Your Virginia Tech Hokies 31, number 22 Duke 14. The Hokies get right here. We said that they would. We took them money line, and they took care of us here. Good game from Ryan Willis. He looked good as a backup, 17-27 for 332, 3 touchdowns, no picks. And, again, this is another one that the score probably looks a little bit closer than this game actually was. Duke scores a touchdown in the fourth quarter to make it a 10-point game, but that was about as close as it ever was. The Hokies took care of business here and got right after a rough week last week.
They made explosive plays on offense. Dalton Keene had a 41-yard touchdown catch for Virginia Tech. Huge block on that play by Eric Kuma, who had 3 catches for 67 yards in this game. You look at the receiving numbers for Virginia Tech, it seemed like they were all big plays in the passing game. And this is something that I kind of alluded to a little bit in the preview, Joey, that you're going to live with the good and the bad with Ryan Willis because he is going to take a little bit he's going to take more chances than Josh Jackson. He's just less conservative as a passer. He's going to sling it around quite a bit. And that gunslinger mentality definitely worked out in Virginia Tech's favor in this game. So like I mentioned, Dalton Keene had a 41-yard touchdown catch. He had 2 catches for 82 yards that led the team. Eric Kuma, 3 catches, 67 yards. Damon Hazelton, 4 for 65 and a touchdown. Hezekiah Grimsley, 2 catches, 40 yards. Trey Turner only had 1 catch for 33. Phil Patterson, 2 catches, 28 yards and a touchdown. 332 yards receiving as a team for Virginia Tech in this football game. And a lot of those types of plays were explosive plays. Averaging almost 20 yards per catch as a team is something that the Virginia Tech offense hasn't had going for them yet this year, especially in the passing game. They've run the ball really well in the past, and they didn't really get the ball rolling at all. And that's because the passing game, too, was rolling like it was. 41 carries, 81 yards, and a touchdown in the game, only 2 yards per carry. Obviously not great, but the passing game was going so well with 332 yards from Ryan Willis and 3 touchdown passes that you weren't leaning on the run nearly as much as you were throughout the first 3 games of the year. So keep an eye on that because Virginia Tech's rushing attack hasn't been great really since David Wilson in 2011. It's been kind of a roller coaster. Virginia Tech's run the ball well for the first few games, wasn't able to do so yesterday, so just keep an eye on that. Daniel Jones, his numbers were fine. He was 23 of 35, 226, a touchdown and a pick. He just didn't really look himself out there. Not really sure what it was. Just there were some throws that he missed where I'm like, man, does healthy Daniel Jones miss that throw? And he didn't really seem all that comfortable, which I think is a testament a bit to the Virginia Tech pass rush as well that had a very nice day. Virginia Tech contained Duke's rushing attack, which is very important because that's the springboard of their offense. Britton Brown only 12 carries for 35 yards in this game as a team, only 2 yards per carry for Duke. So it was a battle of two passers. I mean, that's really what it came down to.
Yeah, if you're a connoisseur of good run games, this game is not for you. Both teams come in a yard short of 2 yards per carry on the game, so that not real pretty, not really a sight for sore eyes in that regard.
Choose your own adventure in the rushing attack, and it was not good. So that was bad. Virginia Tech's defense, real quick, in the secondary, the tackling still leaves a lot to be desired, and that's something that as a Virginia Tech fan and alum, I am concerned about as they play explosive offenses like, I don't know, Notre Dame next Saturday. I mean, you're going to have to wrap up. Duke does not boast a ton of NFL talent at receiver. Notre Dame does, and ODU even did. And we see how we'll see how Notre Dame turns out. We saw how ODU turned out. So there's a little bit of concern there as far as the tackling in the secondary, but we'll see. I mean, there's very little to complain about. I'm nitpicking if I'm going to talk about that for another 2 minutes. Really nice bounce back win for the Hokies. Team responded really well, I thought. It's a character victory that I think Justin Fuente and his coaching staff will be able to build off of here moving forward, that hey, they faced adversity. They went on the road against a ranked Duke team that a lot of people thought was pretty good, and they took it to them from start to finish.
Most importantly, Mike, I think the thing that we have to bring up here, this game goes under, and my pick of the week hits, and we are back, baby. We're back on the horse.
We are back on the horse. Give me that money line.
I improved to 2-3 on the week in picks of the week. So, yeah, good on you guys. Good defense there, Virginia Tech and Duke. Thank you very much. Mike, anything else before we move on?
Yeah, solid win for the Hokies, man. I'm very excited about it. Back in the top 25 with this victory. They're out. Newest poll released today has been 23 going into the ND game this Saturday. So, hey,
it was a long, cold week away from that.
It was not good, but found a way to win here on the road and looked pretty convincing doing it, Joey.
That's right. That is correct. All right, let's move on. Miami 47, North Carolina 10. This was on Thursday night. And really, Mike, I think what we should say is Miami's defense 21, Miami's offense some difference of points in UNC 10. Miami has 3 defensive touchdowns in this game. And that largely thanks to the charitable efforts of one Chaz Surratt, who for some unknown reason gets put into this game multiple times. He goes 4 of 10 for 10 yards and 3 interceptions. And 2 of those interceptions go for touchdowns. And, I mean, goodness. North Carolina is a grease fire right now, Mike. This is a mess.
Yeah, they're a bad football team. You and I could have gone 4 of 10 for 10 yards and 3 picks, I think.
Yeah, I could do that.
Yeah, certainly could do that. And, Chaz Surratt certainly threw for more yards to the other team than he did for his team. Bad. Nothing real good to say about it. Nathan Elliott, 16 of 25 for 104 yards. Woof.
Miami only ran 46 offensive plays in this game.
Yeah, I'll get to them real fast in a second. North Carolina's rushing attack, I mean, not bad. 40 carries, 215, and a touchdown as a team. It's 5.5 yards per carry, roughly. That's not bad. The only problem is you didn't have a passing offense, and Miami keyed on that and forced 3 turnovers in the passing game, and that was all she wrote, Joey, because offensively, Miami was straight chilling all night long. They averaged 6.7 yards per carry, 34 carries for 229. 2 touchdowns. DJ Dallas highlighted the group, 11 carries, 114 and a touchdown. Travis Homer, nice game as well, 14 for 88 yards. N'Kosi Perry, 8 of 12, 125, touchdown and interception. I'll mark this game as an incomplete for him because, quite honestly, he didn't have to do a whole lot, and that's fine if you're a Miami fan. You took care of business against a really, really bad North Carolina team, and you made it look easy. Never competitive. North Carolina being completely incompetent in the passing game really helps that fact. And Larry Fedora, he's in a ton of trouble. I mean, I didn't see him keeping his job past this year anyway. And woof. This is bad. This is a bad football team right now.
Yeah, first of all, they made like 3 quarterback changes in this game. They start with Nathan Elliott, then they go to Chaz Surratt, and they go back to Elliott, and then they go back to Surratt again, I'm not really sure why. Nathan Elliott was very clearly the better quarterback out there, and yet they are just insistent on putting Chaz Surratt out there after he hasn't played a game yet this year because he's been serving a suspension. Yeah, I mean, North Carolina ran the ball fine. Miami ran the ball just fine. It was just this game got so out of hand so fast. It was 33-10 at halftime. And again, North Carolina just keeps turning the ball over and making dumb decisions that put them down. I mean, this is a competitive game in the first quarter. It was one time it was 14-10. North Carolina scored to make it a 3-point game or a 4-point game, right? And just from there, it spiraled out of control entirely. And yeah, North Carolina is a mess. They look bad. They were not competitive here in any way, shape, or form. Like I said, Miami runs 46 offensive plays and scores 47 points, thanks in part to some defensive efforts in that regard. But I mean, this is just a blowout Thursday night game that I stand by my UNC plus 18 pick. I would have thought that they could have covered that, but if you just take away the defensive scores, I think they might have gotten close. So I'm gonna take the moral victory on that one.
I'll give it to you because that's really one of the only victories North Carolina is going to get this year. So we'll give them the moral victory on your against the spread pick. Let's give that to them. It's the least we can do.
There you go. Speaking of the Canes, they got Florida State coming up this week, Mike, and I thought this might be a bit of a look ahead game for them. Turns out it wasn't. But while we're talking about that, you guys should just know that we're going to be bringing our friend Cam Underwood on the program to talk Canes and Knowles here this week. So check out the preview episode coming here in a few days. That should be a lot of fun. So it'll be good to have Cam back on the program here.
We know Cam's really excited about it, as he always is. So it'll be good. It's rivalry week too, so he'll be extra fired up. Should be really, really solid.
Absolutely. Tune in for that one. Number 16, Miami, 47, UNC 10. We'll move on. Number 13, UCF 45, Pittsburgh 14. This was the blowout that we all knew it would be, Mike. You talk about Larry Fedora being in trouble. Is Pat Narduzzi in trouble? And we talked to Jim Hammett before the season. It didn't seem like Pitt fans were all that riled up about it, but this is just looking more and more like a bad football team, Mike. Their defense isn't good. Their offense isn't good. They're not good.
They're not good. We don't have to spend a whole lot of time on the actual game here. Mackenzie Milton, 328, 4 touchdowns for UCF. UCF, pretty good, Joey. Not a bad football team. Pittsburgh, really bad. Still awful. Complete garbage. Kenny Pickett was fine. 16 to 26, 163, touchdown to pick. Okay. I mean, that's kind of what he is. 33 carries for 109 yards for Pitt as an offense, only 3.3 yards per carry. Not great. Yep, Pitt's garbage. UCF minus 13.5, lock of the year, especially at home. Like, Pittsburgh can't score 13.5 points, let alone cover it. They were scratching and clawing to get to 14. That was rough to watch.
Meanwhile, Mackenzie Milton goes for 6 touchdowns by himself.
Yeah, I didn't even mention the 2 he had in the running game. Yeah, UCF real solid. Nice afternoon for basically their entire team. Flipping it back over to, should Pat Narduzzi be in trouble? I mean, yeah, he should, but you and I, like you just mentioned, we've asked Jim Hammett not only this past year in the season preview, but before last season, we asked him, what's the deal with Narduzzi? The defenses aren't that good, and the offense leaves a lot to be desired without Matt Canada. So what is happening here? And Jim's told us, well, I mean, fan base isn't that ticked yet. And the key word was yet. How about now? Because your offense has officially hit the floor. You're 2-3 on the year, and the defense is still atrocious. So now you have a situation where Narduzzi's really just recruited okay. His defense hasn't been good his entire time on campus, and the offense is arguably the worst it's been since he's been there. So now you're really scratching and clawing to make a bowl game, and you certainly look like one of the worst teams in the Coastal Division, but I don't know, Joey.
That's a low bar to clear right now.
It's a low bar to clear. You thought that North Carolina would receive that award, but Pitt found a way to lose to North Carolina last weekend. So didn't think we could get to this point, but here we are.
By the way, word to the wise, don't schedule UCF in your out of conference. They will beat you.
Seems like a bad idea.
It is a no-win proposal right now. Don't do that. By the way, Mike, Pitt has 7 games left. They need to win 4 of them to get bowl eligible. Tell me where the 4 wins are. Home against Syracuse, at Notre Dame, home against Duke, at Virginia, home against Virginia Tech, at Wake Forest, at Miami.
Not happening.
You got 4 wins in there?
Not happening.
Mm-mm.
Maybe 2. I think they can get 2, maybe, but I don't feel great about that either, and I'm not putting money on that. I can tell you that much. Not a good situation.
No, it's not. I don't even feel good about them playing Syracuse next week. I think Syracuse might get the best of them at Heinz Field.
No, and regardless of what happens in the Notre Dame Virginia Tech game, when Pitt goes to South Bend in 2 weeks, they are going to get murdered.
They're going to get wrecked.
That is going to be a massacre in South Bend. It doesn't matter what happens in the Virginia Tech game this upcoming weekend. You've got 2 scenarios here. Notre Dame's coming off of a big win on the road, and they're coming home to play Pitt. And you're thinking, oh, letdown game? No. Like,
I will be first in
no.
line at the window to lay those 30 points from Notre Dame.
Yep.
I will gladly lay 30 in that game. I don't care.
And they could lose a game to Syracuse this upcoming weekend before they even have to worry about getting blown out in South Bend. We're at the bottom here for Pittsburgh. They are not a good football team.
Not even close. So that was a mess. Number 13 UCF 45, Pittsburgh 14. Mike, we'll move on. Georgia Tech 63, Bowling Green 17. Georgia Tech covers. That was good. Taquan Marshall 5 of 6 passing. That was good. They ran the ball well. All of that was good. The thing is, Georgia Tech winning this game, I don't know if this is more of an indication of where Georgia Tech is or where Bowling Green is, because Bowling Green is kind of its own brand of disaster. They were not very good, and Georgia Tech did not have a lot of problems just moving the ball on offense, and maybe had a couple of issues stopping the Bowling Green offense, but ultimately, I mean, it didn't really matter. Georgia Tech runs the ball for damn near 400 yards and 8 touchdowns in this game. So, I mean, that was going to do it either way.
Yeah, was going to do it either way, and you do what you're supposed to do here in this one. You run for a hell of a lot of yards against one of the worst rushing defenses in the FBS. You get the job done there. Score 63 points. That's a win. You cover the spread by a lot. That's another win. And I mean, we didn't really learn a whole lot about Georgia Tech. We knew they could run the ball, and we knew that Bowling Green couldn't stop it, and we knew Bowling Green's offense really wasn't all that good. And Georgia Tech, for the most part, did a pretty good job stopping it. And even when Bowling Green picked up yards, the game was already just so far out of hand. Yeah, I mean, get that dub, move on, chalk it up.
Georgia Tech now going on the road Friday night to Louisville. I'll be there, by the way. This is going to be a game, though, that I think Georgia Tech has to win this game if this season's going to get right and turn into one that they actually want to have. But I don't know. I don't know, Mike. We'll see.
Louisville. I know you're cautious with school, all that good stuff. Louisville's so bad that I think Georgia Tech will be just fine.
I mean, and normally I would feel fine about it because I agree that Georgia Tech is probably the better team, but Tech has had so many problems playing on the road, and the fact that Louisville can pass the ball to some degree and Georgia Tech doesn't do a great job of getting after the passer or defending the pass, it's like, I don't know. I thought I was going to feel a lot better about it, and I'm feeling worse than I was before the season, even though I've seen some bad Louisville football in the time since. So
it's the external factors with Georgia Tech being a bad road team and everything else. First, more so than looking at these two teams on paper. And Georgia Tech certainly the better team, I think.
Yeah, I would think so, but again, time will tell. We'll find out very soon.
Let's find out together, shall we?
We shall. Moving on, Boston College 45, Temple 35. AJ Dillon gets a little bit injured in this game, Mike.
A little bit banged up.
Not good.
Not great. Had 161 yards and 2 touchdowns though when he was playing.
That's good.
That's good. Was it Ben Gilneys? Whatever. 120 yards, touchdowns. Yeah. Yeah, I had something. He had a touchdown run, had 120 yards on the ground, so the train keeps on chugging. Anthony Brown, much, much, much better effort. I mean, was it? He completed almost 50% of his passes. He didn't throw 4 picks. And
he didn't throw any picks, which is definitely good.
Yes, definitely good. I'm not looking at this like he set the world on fire, but God, he did not throw 4 interceptions, and that makes such a huge difference with this football team. So that didn't happen. Temple kept it fun because Raquel Armstead had 171 yards rushing and 4 touchdowns. So that's how you keep the game competitive. Isaiah Wright, 7 catches, 114 in this game as well. Anthony Russo, their quarterback. He, again, 255, 2 picks, 20 of 45 passing. He was fine. Temple kept it competitive. Boston College more than happy to comply with that. And hey, they were able to keep him at arm's length and score that touchdown there in the fourth quarter to really, we'll say, put it away. But 10-point victory, you get the job done. Tough Temple team here. They were scrappy.
Man, I just keep thinking with A.J. Dillon getting hurt here, we don't know his status moving forward. You think about Trevor Lawrence getting hurt for Clemson, and already, again, a couple of these teams being significantly worse than we thought.
Yep.
Man, this is just turning into a bit of a disaster of a year for the conference. I mean, maybe this is the low point. It only gets better from here, but I'm not getting the warm fuzzies here, Mike, about how the conference is doing this year. It's been a bit of a rough ride so far, and it doesn't seem like it's getting better.
Yeah, it's a rocky ride. Let's leave it there. It's an adventure.
Somebody please come and fix the D train.
Yeah,
we need to keep riding the D train.
Yeah, gonna need that. Gonna need that.
D for Dylan. D also for dudes here, Mike. Actually,
yes. The dudes got it done, and really, at the end of the day, that's all that matters. Especially coming off of that tough Purdue loss last week. Nice to see him bounce back here.
Yeah, good bounce back. Maybe a little bit closer than we wanted it to be, but hey, at the end of the day, it was a win. Last one, Mike. Wake Forest 56, Rice 24. Deacons just got the job done here. They came out firing. They were up 42-3 at halftime. Sam Hartman 15-17 for 241, 4 touchdowns and no picks. Is that good?
Yeah.
I think that's good.
I think I'll take that. Yeah. I think it's all right. Hey, in related news, Rice, really bad.
Real bad. As predicted and as expected, garbage. Yeah. Yeah, the Owls not a particularly functional football team right now.
That's one way to put it.
Yeah, they were never really going to give Wake a bit of even a much of a game here. The Deacons cover a huge spread in this game. I think that's very telling. Good to see them bounce back as well after a big blowout loss at home to Notre Dame last week. And once again, they got the Tigers coming to town next week, so we'll see how the healing process goes for Trevor Lawrence, because Wake could get a little bit frisky in that game for what that's worth.
They could definitely get frisky, especially at home. And you know what? Clemson should go ahead and cover Greg Dortch, because that's something Rice failed to do. And I'll tell you what, if Greg Dortch has 11 catches for 163 yards and 4 touchdowns next Saturday, Clemson is in big trouble.
Gosh, Greg Dortch was doing some just absurd things to that Rice defense in this game.
He gets no love. He's such a great talent, man. It's a shame. He is outstanding to watch. He is a joy to watch. He's fantastic. Yeah. Man, go get you some Greg Dortch. All right. Yep.
Mike, that's all the games. We've got a couple of awards to hand out here. Dumpster Fire of the Week. You got this one?
Yeah. It's hard to not have your Dumpster Fire of the Week be anybody other than the North Carolina Tar Heels and the ghost of Chaz Surratt. 4 of 10, 10 yards, 3 interceptions. Thanks for playing. That, in accordance with Larry Fedora's job security, grease fire of the week. Really, really bad. It's not getting better, Joey. That's the thing. It's not getting better. It's only getting worse. There are a lot of tough games left on the schedule, and man, oh man, just don't put him in anymore. Just
North Carolina's a mess.
So
I want to add my own candidate in here if I can.
Sure.
And this is just, we need to take a moment just to call this out while we have the opportunity to. The Clemson quarterback situation has gotten real messy real quick. Again, 2 weeks ago, you had a quarterback that took your team to the playoff. You had a freshman phenom. Now you got neither of them. This has gotten real messy real quick. We will see if Trevor Lawrence is able to come back. But again, that is that's a bit messy for my tastes.
Yeah, completely agree. Not a good situation. And hey, I mean, when Holly Rowe was asking at halftime to Dabo Swinney whether or not he'd take Kelly Bryant back, worst case scenario, and he goes, "Oh God, yeah, I love that kid." That's when we know. It's not good. I mean, Chase Bryce is a fine player, obviously very highly touted recruit, just doesn't have the experience and made some big time throws in the game on Saturday. Worst comes to worse, I guess he's the guy, but hey, it's a concussion for Trevor Lawrence and see how he reacts here this week and if he's able to play coming up here on Saturday.
Yeah, that's going to be a huge deal for that program this season. Go ACC moment of the week, Mike. You know what award you win when you got 2 minutes left and you're trying to protect a lead and you got a first down in field goal range and you start throwing the ball and it gets intercepted and it causes you to lose the game?
You win the Go ACC moment of the week, Joey.
That's precisely what you win. Louisville and Bobby Petrino's play calling wins the Go ACC moment of the week for throwing the ball with a lead inside of 2 minutes deep in opponents' I don't know what the thought was there. That is bizarre. That is ridiculous play calling from Louisville, and I hope you're mad. I hope you're mad, Louisville fans, because that is just absurd. So
bad. Very,
very bad. Go ACC to that. And finally, Mike, we got the Brian Van Gorder Memorial You Tried Award, and this one goes to Daniel Jones and his effort against your Hokies.
It does. Daniel Jones, you tried to come back early from a broken collarbone you suffered just about 3 weeks ago, and you didn't quite look yourself. Shout out to the Duke medical team. You guys are wizards. But you tried to be a competent quarterback, and I won't say you failed, but you certainly didn't look yourself. Co-recipient is Larry Fedora's search for a starting quarterback. You tried on Thursday night to see if Chaz Surratt was the guy, and you continue to do that. That failed. So let's not do that anymore, like we just mentioned. So, bad. And maybe, in the namesake, we could just give the You Tried award to just Bobby Petrino.
Oh, yeah. Always. That named after his defensive coordinator, of course, because right. I just am not going to be able to forget that.
Yeah.
By the way, Mike, I'm still really messed up. Do you think that like Daniel Jones made a deal with the devil over trying to get this collarbone healed and now coming back to play, and now like in making this deal with the devil, he's no longer a good quarterback? Is that on the table here?
Only a deal with the Blue Devil, Joey.
Hey, got him. Well done.
Yes, thank you. I don't know, man. He was drinking that Duke athletic training magic potion to get himself back on the field in 3 weeks from a fractured collarbone. Hey, I mean, Duke's a better football team with Daniel Jones, but I think he's got to be 100% Daniel Jones. I think with the way things were going in this game, honestly, Joey, I didn't bring this up in the recap portion of this, so let me bring this up here real quick. With the way that the Duke offense was operating, particularly like in the second half, the early part of the second half, when they still certainly had a chance to win and they were kind of stalling out, I was wondering when David Cutcliffe was going to go to Quentin Harris, just because Quentin Harris played pretty well over the last couple of weeks, gave him a spark in the running game, which, Duke obviously struggled to run the ball in this football game. I was wondering when we were going to see Quentin Harris, and it happened a couple times here and there in a pinch, but it didn't happen as often as I thought it would. And really interesting coaching there from Cutcliffe. I think he knew he had to throw the football to win, felt more confident in Daniel Jones to get that done, but didn't end up working out that way. That's something, if I'm David Cutcliffe, I go back and wonder, hey, if I give Quentin Harris a little bit more of a look into this game, does it help? Does it impact anything? And of course, we'll never know, but that's one thing that stood out to me as well. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, cool that he's back, but like I don't know if he's right yet. We'll have to see. I don't know. Mike, that's all I got. Anything else before we get on out of here? Pretty good recap, given that you were in Cancun and the ACC was a train wreck again. Yeah.
So I was thinking about it, and I think if you just look at the results of who beat who, I think it pretty much all went according to plan. But the way that we got to those wins, in a lot of ways, did not go according to plan. I think we were pretty much spot on with every single result in terms of win-loss. But again, some spreads and some methodologies were just a little bit off this week.
Yep.
So yeah, a relatively tame week 5 as it were. But Mike, on to week 6.
On to weeks already. On to week 6.
I know it's going way too fast. We're getting into October now, which I'm ready for the weather and all that, but it does feel like it's going too fast. So
yeah, when you get to about the halfway point in the regular season, that's when you know. And we just got done with the off season, so let's relax here a little bit and try to take a little bit of this in here as we get into the actual fall months here and some real conference play action coming up.
Yeah, for sure. Well, as we said, we'll be back a little bit later this week previewing week 6. We're going to have Cam Underwood on with us to talk Florida State, Miami. That's coming up this next weekend. In the meantime, you guys can find us on Twitter. I am at FTRS Joey. He is at Mike McDaniel CFB, and together we're at BC Podcast ACC. Y'all can send us an email with your questions, comments, concerns to the longest email address known to man, basketballconferencepodcast@gmail.com.
Nailed it.
Yep. You can find us on iTunes, Google Play, SoundCloud, the Overcast app, wherever fine podcasts are sold for free, possibly on Spotify one day, possibly on Stitcher one day. I don't know. I had somebody ask me about that. We'll see if that's a thing or not. It might not be. Mike, tell them where they can find us on the social medias.
Yeah, Facebook.com. Was doing so well.
No, you
Facebook.com/basketball conference. Rate, review, find all of our podcasts there, Jay.
Please do. Please do. You can also find us on YouTube if you so choose. You can come check out my sweet sunburn I got in Cancun. It was let's just say it was a weekend with a lot of booze and not a lot of sunscreen. And that's what results in this, sunglass tan you got going over here. So go check that out if you want to. Mike, you want to come back and preview week 6?
Yeah, let's do it, man. We got some big games this Saturday.
Yes, we do. It is a light slate in terms of volume. It is a heavy slate in terms of quality. So definitely come back and check that out with us later this week. But until then, for Mr. Mike McDaniel, I am Joey Weaver. Thank you guys so much for listening. We'll talk to you again soon. And until next time, go ACC.